Welcome to the Lingerie Connect platform and thank you for being there. Today I am with Gilda Manviel, Director of the Economic Observatory at the IFM. Welcome Gilda and thank you for being there today to share with us a review of this very strange year. You have about 30 minutes to share with us all your perspective and opportunities, I guess, for the upcoming year. Thank you, Gilda. Enjoy.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be with you today. And we are going to share in this presentation the review, of course, of the very particular year 2020. And as you all know, behind every crisis, there is always some opportunities. And I would like to point out the fact that it's important also to have information concerning the opportunities. But before that, of course, we will have a short time presentation concerning the review of the year. Okay, the content of my presentation is this one, and we will focus on the first part in the unprecedented impact of this sanitary crisis. We will also study the changes in consumption behaviors that have been very important in France, but everywhere in the world. And I will finish with the outlook and some projections maybe concerning the year 2021. So it has been, of course, a very dramatic impact on the global economy and particularly also on the fashion system in France, but we will see that it has happened also in many countries in Europe and all around the world. First of all, to start, I would like to mention that this crisis, this sanitary crisis, started in France in a context that wasn't very favorable for the fashion ecosystem. And we have been witnessing a decline in fashion spendings in France. And I would like to stress the point that if you consider fashion spendings in 4 products, for instance, leather goods, footwear, perfumes and cosmetics, and apparel and clothing and garments, what we can notice is a decline in the importance of the share of clothing spendings. Of course, the budget of households spendings in clothing is the most important if you have a look at these 4 type of products. But this importance is declining, and you can notice the decline of the share of clothing spendings. And on the opposite, perfumes and cosmetics are doing pretty well, and the importance of these spendings are increasing in the overall budget. Also, we can notice also an increasing in leather goods and a good resistance in footwear. So it's important to remind this context, which was not very favorable to government spendings in France. Of course, we've been through another important crisis. It was the subprime crisis in the US, but remember the declines in the retail sales were quite important, but not as dramatic as the declines that we've been through in 2020. Here you can notice, for instance, in France, we have witnessed a decline of 3%, 3.2% in retail sales in clothing, which has nothing which has nothing to do with the declines that we've been through in 2020, of course. But this was the context, and the crisis of 2020 started in a difficult context for the fashion system in France. And between 2007 and 2019, the market has declined by 17% in value. And of course, this clothing market includes a lingerie market, of course. And what is important to understand is that in this period of time, more than 10 years, we have witnessed a decline that is comparable to the decline that we've been through in 2020. In only 1 year, in 2020, we have been through in France a decline of around 17%. We don't have the final figures for December and for the whole year 2020, but we know that the decline will be around 15 or 17%, which is very important. Let's make a short comparison with other countries in the world. And by the way, we can notice that the decline in France is not as sharp as the decline that we can notice in the UK or in Germany or in Italy, and in Spain. The decline in Spain was very, very important, minus 40%, which is very important. And of course, it has to do with the fact that in Spain, the market share of online spendings are not as important than in, for instance, in Germany, UK, or even France. And in the US, we have witnessed last year a decline in retail sales of 26%, which is of course very important. The figures for China are going to be more favorable. Of course, there is a decline in consumption of garment in China in 2020, but the decline is less important. It will be around 10%, a decline of 10%, which is an important decline for China. But the capacity of the Chinese economy to rebound is very interesting, and we noticed that the decline in the market is less important than anywhere else in the world. So in the Economic Observatory, we follow on a monthly basis the evolution of the retail sales. And it's interesting to stress the point that, of course, we've been through very sharp declines in March, April, or November. And of course, it has to do with the lockdown that was set up by the government, and non-essential retail channels like clothing, point of sales were not judged important enough to stay open, and all the shops during this period of time, March and April, and for the second lockdown in November, unfortunately, the majority of the point of sales in the garment market were closed. So, of course, it has had a huge impact in the business. And you can notice here the sharp declines in this period of time. I would like to underline the fact that we have also been through a good period of time concerning the summertime in France. And we have been through a good period of time because in July and August and even in September, the figures were not that bad, and the increase was important in July and August. So the third quarter, that is to say the period of July, August, and September, the market recorded an increase on average of 1.5% compared to the third quarter of 2019, which is a good result, in fact. And this was due to the fact that the tourists in France were really important, but not foreign tourists, unfortunately, but French tourists were important, and French people enjoyed doing some tourism in their own country. And the summer was really, the weather of this summer was really nice, and it has been a strong support for consumption. Unfortunately, some retail channels like the department stores suffered from the fact that the tourism really stopped, and I mean by that the tourism coming from Asia, particularly, or coming from China. And of course, it has had a huge impact on the business of department stores. I want to share with you an interesting slide, to my point of view, at least. I want to make a comparison between the evolution of the market in France. Here you have the changes in monthly textile and clothing retail sales here, and we can make a comparison with the lingerie retail sales. And it is interesting to notice that every month the lingerie market in France has done much better than the average textile and clothing market. And we can notice, for instance, in August, the very important increase, plus 17%, or plus 9.7% in September, compared with August, plus 7.2%, or the decrease in September. And of course, it has something to do with the fact that the online retail sales in the lingerie market has recorded interesting growth. And we will see this point a little bit later in my presentation. The fact that, of course, in 2020, we have been through an interesting dynamic of online sales. And of course, it was important for consumers to keep on buying some fashion items, and of course, e-commerce was a good way to offset the fact that the shops were closed. In a more qualitative aspect, I want to share with you the fact that it's interesting to notice that in this period of time, here in the summertime, before the second lockdown, we have noticed an interesting resilience of consumption. And in fact, consumers got used to this new difficult environment, and with the mask, and with the new customer experience. And in fact, it was quite difficult to predict that when we worked in March or April. We worked on the market projections at the IFM observatory. But anyway, I think it is interesting to underline the fact that the customers, the consumption has witnessed an interesting resilience in this difficult period of time. Unfortunately, the second lockdown was set up by the government. But in this period of time, we had an interesting and a quite important recovery in the market. And I think we can stay confident for the future, because customers and consumption was able to resist and to get used to this new environment. And I find it interesting in this time where it is important also to have good perspectives. Last year, 2020, was a year of contrasts. The impact was huge. The negative impact was huge, but there are some markets where the impact was less important. And if you have a look at the evolution of the 11 first month of 2020, you can notice that the market is recording a decrease of 18%. But we know that the decrease will be less important because the month of December, we don't have the final figures for December, but we know that the results will be improving the overall figures of the year. And we can notice that here, home textiles resisted better than for instance, women's wear or men's wear. Home textiles, you know, French people, and I think it is like that in all the countries. French people stayed home, and they maybe gave more concern to their furnitures, to their home environment, and they wanted to improve their condition of living, and in fact, the home textile shopping was improving more than other kind of items. Women's lingerie also recorded a decrease of only 15%, which is better than the ready-to-wear in women or men. And here you have the different evolution of the women's lingerie retail channels, because of course you have differences in the different markets, as we've seen together, but you have also differences in the retail channels. Of course, all these figures include online retail, of course, but here you have the evolution of the mail order and pure players. So they recorded the best results with an increase of 14%, which is obvious because they enjoyed the fact that they were able to sell online, which is an interesting advantage compared to the other retail channels that are in fact omni-channel retailers with, of course, e-commerce, which is important, but the majority of the business is done through stores in France, and we'll see that a bit later in my presentation, but the majority of the business is done through stores. And you can notice here that the department stores, as I told you, decreased, the turnover of department stores decreased by nearly 30%, which is a huge and a dramatic and a sharp decrease. And this is, of course, related to the fact that the foreign clients were not able to offset the decrease of the sales. And you know that department stores in France, in Boulevard Haussmann, and in other part of the country, they of course are very much dependent on the tourism, on the foreign tourism. We notice also a better resistance of discount specialty chains. Sorry. And of course, discount specialty chains resisted better because you know that some households in France suffered from unemployment, and the purchasing power of a part of French consumers declined, was more fragile, and it was, of course, discount specialties chains like Kiabi in France or Gémeaux, networks like that. They have a positioning of their fashion items in first prices. And of course, it is important for the people that suffered from a decrease of their purchasing power. It's important to buy at very low prices. And this is why discount specialty chains enjoyed a decrease which was less important than the average market. So here it is the lingerie retail channels only. It's not the overall fashion market. But in of course, in retailers like Kiabi or Gémeaux, you have, of course, as you know, all kind of fashion items, children, menswear, women's wear, and of course, lingerie. Towards a change in consumption behaviors. What was interesting last year was the fact that some trends accelerated in the consumption behaviors. We've been through changes in consumer behaviors since the last 10 or 15 years. But to my point of view, 2020 really accelerated some of these trends. And we will see, for instance, in the fact that the online retail sales increased. This was, to my point of view, a key learning of last year. And we can notice here, before the sanitary crisis, we can notice an increase in the share of online spendings in the overall market of apparel and textile. And before the COVID crisis, the percentage of online spendings in France was 15%. That is to say, in other words, that more than 80% of the business is done through stores. And this is why the impact of the lockdown was very important. And the closure of stores was really a negative impact on the business of companies, because more than in France, 80% of the business is done through stores. If you make a short comparisons between France and other European countries, and if you have a look on the US or China, you can notice that in fact France is in between northern European countries like UK or Germany, with a market share of more than 20%. More than 20% of the consumption is made online in UK or Germany. In southern countries like Italy or Spain, the market share of online spendings is much lower, less than 10%. And of course, this is why the impact of this sanitary crisis has been huge, has been dramatic on the business of fashion in Italy and in Spain. And in China, a third of the business is done through online spendings, which is very important. And one of the consequences of the last year's sanitary crisis is going is concerning, in fact, the online spendings, and the share of online spendings in all these countries are going to jump. And in France, we think that the online spendings are going to reach 20%, and maybe the online spendings are going to represent more, even more than 20% in the overall market of fashion. Let's have a look, a quick look on the evolution and the changes every month. In this table, you can notice the evolution of retail sales offline and online. You can have the comparison of these changes. And if you have a closer look, you can notice that the online retail sales really jumped in some months, like in May 2020, we have witnessed a huge increase of online spendings with plus 62%, which is a record high. And it's very important. We notice also in November and in December important increases of online spendings. But it is noticeable that in some months we can also witness an increase on the sales concerning the stores. Here in August, the offline sales increased in August during summertime, as I told you, shiny weather, French tourism, and in December also, before the Christmas season in France, the market was really in good shape in fashion. And in fact, we can maybe talk about revenge shopping. As you know, this expression was very popular in Korea and in Asia and even in China. But after the frustration of the lockdown, French consumers enjoy shopping, and in fact the figures before the Christmas season were really good in France, and we noticed for preliminary figures plus 13.4%, which is a very interesting increase, because we haven't witnessed this kind of increase for so many years in France. And this is in fact related to the fact that, as I told you before, I think it is interesting to stress the fact that consumers have the capacity, have the ability of adapting themselves to this new situation, and this is good news for the future. So let's have a look at the evolution of retail sales for 2020. As this time in this slide, you have the differences in different retail channels. And you can notice in dark blue the evolution of online retail, which is very interesting because it's always increasing. And here the overall market, we have a decrease of 18.7%, and it is in fact related to a decline of 26% for stores, but an increase of 20% of online consumption. And for the overall year of 2020, we think that the online consumption is going to increase by more than 20%. And let's make a short comparison, the same slide, but for lingerie retail sales. And once again, lingerie market is doing better with online sales increasing by 26%, and the decline of the overall sales, the addition of online and offline, the decline is only minus 14.9%. So like I told you before, the market is doing better in the lingerie market, because one of the reasons is the fact that online sales enjoyed in this particular market more important growth than in the average market. One of the key learnings also of last year was the fact that consumers gave more concerns about sustainability, eco-responsibility. They were much more aware of transparency, of made in. Also, they paid more attention of the origin of the manufacturing country, and this, of course, these trends were existing before the 2020 crisis, but we have been through an important acceleration of these trends. So in addition to the dynamic of online, which was very, very important, as you know, last year, we have also interesting qualitative learnings concerning the year 2020. And we have done in IFM an interesting survey in the month of June 2020 for Première Vision. And some of the element of these studies, I want to share with you some, in a couple of slides, some key learnings of this study. So in the second half of 2020, so the date of the survey was June 2020, and we have interviewed consumers in France, Germany, Italy, UK, and it was an interesting comparison. And we have asked in the second half of 2020, do you plan to buy eco-friendly fashion products? And on average, so in black, it is the average of France, Germany, Italy, and United Kingdom. 74% of the respondents said that they are planning to buy more eco-friendly fashion products. So we have very good prospects for eco-responsible fashion purchases in all countries surveyed. And this is an interesting result because I think behind every crisis, you have opportunities. And this is, to my point of view, an interesting and a major opportunity. It is also a challenge for companies, of course, but it is an interesting opportunities to meet consumers' expectations. What is the most important criterion that drives you to purchase an eco-friendly fashion product? Why? What is determinant, in other words, for consumers when they are buying a fashion product? And the results is interesting, and consumers interviewed had only the possibility to choose one item. So there is only one answer possible. So for us, it was a good way to understand their top priority. What is the top priority in your mind when you buy an eco-friendly fashion product? And it's interesting to stress that the top priority is the use of eco-friendly material. The material is becoming more and more important. It has to be recycled, organic fabrics, new fibers. Anyway, eco-responsible fabrics. And this is interesting because if we consider the attitude of consumers maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago, I think it would have been different. And I think now the environment aspects and the fabric is becoming more and more important, because number two is a fashion product that respects the environment. So the environment issue and the eco-responsible fabric issue, to my point of view, are two important topics to have in mind. And concerning the social aspects, of course, which are important, but unfortunately, I think that consumers they are less concerned by the social aspects of eco-responsibility issues. And remember, in 2013, we've been through a dramatic accident in Bangladesh. And at that period of time, the social issue wasn't top of mind. But I think now the top of mind is the sustainability of the fabric and the environment also issue. Concerning the made in, the country where the garment is manufactured, it is interesting also. This trend is getting more and more important in the mind of the consumers. So concerning the made in the second half of 2020, will you? Of course, they keep the majority will keep the purchasing habit that they had prior to COVID, but 60% of consumers in Europe, so it's the average of the 5 countries mentioned before, they will look at labels that indicate the country of origin, the country of manufacture, and almost 60% prefer to buy a fashion product that has been made in their own country. That is to say, France for French consumers, Italy for Italian consumers, etc. So this is an interesting point. And I think COVID and the sanitary crisis accelerated these aspects of consumption behaviors. So what is the outlook? To my point of view, we have opportunities. An important challenge is to increase online sales for every retailer, every company. This is a huge result of last year's crisis. And it's going to last for, unfortunately, maybe for during 2021. So in addition to that, we have also the eco-responsibility issue that is key to my point of view. Consumer expectations are moving very fast towards this kind of concern. You have also the the importance of the made in, that is to say the made in France for French people, made in Italy for Italian people. And these 3 elements, to my point of view, are key. So online sales, eco-responsibility, and the importance of the made in issue. And I would like to finish my presentation with maybe the GDP projections. And so you have in these figures the GDP projections made by OECD for 2020, for 2021 and 2022. And what I wanted to share with you is the fact that more than ever, China is an important growth region, an important growth country. And you notice that China is the only country in 2020 that enjoyed growth, GDP growth, even though this GDP growth is by far less important than it used to be in China, but still almost 2% GDP growth, interesting data. Second, I would like to share with you, it's not a very good news, but in 2021, we won't recover in the majority of countries, and in Europe and in the US, we won't recover in 2021 what has been lost in 2020. So that's bad news. If you have a look, for instance, at France, we will suffer from a decrease of 9%, and the increase will be in 2020 only by 6%. Only, in fact, in G20, the growth will be more important than the decrease in 2020. So that is to say, I would like to conclude by that, despite the fact that we have to remain optimistic, because we have seen that consumers are able to adapt themselves to the new situation. And I think it was a key result of 2020. But also we have to be realistic, and the projections and the prospect for 2021, the uncertainty is very important, and the visibility of the future is very bad, and we don't know really how long it is going to take, and the economy depends on the sanitary crisis, and hopefully we all will be able to fight this huge sanitary crisis in 2021. In that way, the economy will be in better conditions to recover. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Gilda. It was very interesting, and thank you so much for this very important update of the market. I wish you all an excellent day, and see you soon on Lingerie Connect. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.